Elitlopp.com.
Welcome to another episode of Here They Come. I'm Paul Ramlow.
And I'm Kate Lockhart.
Kate, this past Friday at the Meadowlands, the Sumac Lad Final, the first major final of the year for the older trotting horse set, saw Lucky Jim get back on the winning track. He defeated his rival Arch Madness in a time of 1:51-1, and it was reported just recently by USTA foreign correspondent Karsten Bonsdorf that victory got Lucky Jim the first invitation to this year's Elitlopp in Solvalla, Sweden.
It was a fantastic race, Paul. It was great to see Arch Madness coming at Lucky Jim at the end, and Lucky Jim just barely held on for a win by a neck.
Yeah, it's possible we still may have a couple other North American horses going over there to join him. Enough Talk, who was in the Elitlopp previously, looks like he may be a possibility to get an invitation to go back again this year, as well as the Canadian trotter Define the World. Once again, the Elitlopp will be held in Solvalla, Sweden on Sunday, May 30th.
More news out of New Jersey, Paul. According to a published report, the New Jersey Governor Chris Christie received an offer from a group of casino industry executives offering $600 million to have VLTs at the Meadowlands and also to operate the racetrack.
Yeah, you know what, Kate? I can't wrap my head around a $600 million figure. That's not exactly small coin. But the proposal does envision that the state would take in $350 million a year in VLT, income, and sales taxes from the first phase of the project. They base their estimates on how the slots have worked at Mohegan Sun at Pocono Downs in Pennsylvania. So obviously they've done their homework, and you wouldn't make that kind of an offer unless you felt you could eventually turn a profit. In this week's Here They Come interview segment, Kate caught up with Tony Alagna, who is on his own as a trainer for the first time this year, after spending many years as a second trainer for the Irv Miller stable.
Tony, this is your first year with your own stable after many years as a second trainer for Irv Miller. How did you know this was the right time for you to go out on your own?
I just always felt like when the timing was right, I would be ready to do it. I had a lot of experience working for Irv, and of course, I second trained for Brian Penske for years. I just felt at 36 years old that the time was now, and I'm really glad that I did it, and I haven't taken a look back since I've done it.
Well, your most successful trainee so far this year is Laugh and Be Happy, who's a 4-year-old pacing mare that came up through the Iowa Fair circuit. She's off to a great start this year in 2010. She's won the White Ruffles, the Night Styles Finals, and was third in the Jersey Girls. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
She was just never through a bad start the entire time we raced her through all three series. She went an amazing heat in the final. Just things didn't work out for her. She had to be used a couple times during the race and still put in a huge effort to be third.
One of your 2-year-olds, Beautiful in Blue, is owned by an interesting group that consists of 10 prominent women in harness racing. How did you get that group together?
Well, it was kind of a spur of the moment thing we put together at Harrisburg, but we're having a lot of fun with it so far, and she hasn't even raced yet.
That's great. Are there any horses or accomplishments that you're most proud of from your time training with Irv Miller?
We had a tremendous ride together. I mean, Irv and I are still friends, and he's based right here at Gateway as I am, so we see each other every day on the track. Probably the most exciting time that I had there was campaigning Liz Mara for 2 years. That was just an amazing journey to go with that horse from the time we purchased him and going over and doing the pre-purchase exam, purchasing him, and within 6 days he won his first start for us in 148 flat at Woodbine. Last year, having Il Villaggio in Canada for the Wellwood was a great experience as well. To win the Wellwood Trot up there with the nostalgia and the history to that race was a great accomplishment and really a lot of fun.
Well, you used to be the co-owner of Martha Maxine, which is a horse that made some big headlines last year. And now you're
good and bad.
Yeah, and now you're training him. What has it been like making the transition from racing against mares to racing in the open events?
It was extremely tough. I mean, it was such a wonderful story. My mom found the mare, so of course there's sentimentality there. And for us to purchase the mare, I bought her for $25,000, and she goes on and makes what she made, and we sold half of her to Brittany with future broodmare in mind. And when that didn't work out, it was devastating for all of us. So the transition from that to all of a sudden, what do you mean you're telling us that we've got a hermaphrodite? And when they told us that was going to happen, they said when we took her to New Bolton, the chances of her being a hermaphrodite were 1 in 300,000.
Yeah, it was certainly a shock for the rest of the industry as well.
Yes, for sure. And, it's just been such a tough transition, for her going against the mares to having to race against the open colts is just, it's night and day, and I mean, it's made her or him struggle.
Well, Tony, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and best of luck as you continue racing in 2010.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the call.
Thanks, Tony. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Good luck in the 2010 season.
Paul, I saw an interesting post on Dean Towers' blog, which is called Pull the Pocket, about the lowest win takeout in North America. It was interesting. He asked, as a bettor himself, he asked, where is the lowest win takeout? Where can I get the most for my money in North America? And after looking at over 140 tracks, both thoroughbred and standardbred, he found that the lowest takeout was at Tioga Downs.
Yeah, if you listened to our show last week, we had a nice interview with Jason Settlemoyer, the vice president of racing at Tioga. They lowered their win place show takeout to 15% this year. The track will be opening on May 1st, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Interesting story earlier this week on the USTA website, Kate, by Frank Salive, my good friend, the great publicity director at Pompano Park in South Florida, talking about Doug Brown, the Canadian Horse Racing Hall of Fame driver. Doug has kind of fallen out of the limelight in recent years. He was a major catch driver on the WEG circuit for many decades. He now spends time mostly following the pursuit of his passion, training and breaking yearlings.
Yeah, I noticed he said in Ontario he was missing quite a bit of time breaking the yearlings because of weather, so he should be in a better position next year as he makes the move down to Florida and continues his training duties down there.
Yeah, Brown has been one of the best catch drivers in the history of our sport, over 8,200 wins and almost $86 million in purses. Racing fans south of the border here will remember him with great pacers like Town Pro and Digger Almahurst, who both won Breeders' Crowns. It's time for this week's edition of the Hollywood Minute with Bob Hollywood Heyden and Nicole Kraft, brought to you by the Trotting and Pacing Guide. Get your copy today at shop.ustrotting.com. This week, Bob offers tips on betting the Pick Six.
Well, Bob, I know that you're like me, and as much as we love harness racing, when Derby time comes around, we cannot help but get pulled into Derby fever. Tell me about your Derby thoughts this year.
Well, I am very excited about this year's Derby. I love doing stats in the Derby. It's the one race that is just universal, and I really found something I think is amazing. I'm looking at the Escondera horse, the colt. Todd Pletcher's never won this race, which is amazing enough, but neither has John Velasquez, who, oddly enough, has 3 straight last-place finishes in his first 3 ever Derby rides in 96, 98, and 99. He's actually been 6 times last or next to last. He's never been favored and never won this race.
That's a streak he'd like to break, I bet.
That's an incredible streak for an absolutely great jockey like John Velasquez. What a time to come to the fore and win the Kentucky Derby with a colt like Escondera, who's clearly going to be the favorite, probably somewhere around even money, who was just breezing in the Wood Memorial. So it really looks to me like a lot of those John Velasquez stats and Todd Pletcher, the offers are all going to come to a screeching halt in 2010.
Well, Bob, the Derby's always an interesting bet, but there's a good bet happening at the Meadowlands.
Pick 6, there's a big carryover at Meadowlands starting this week, and in a lot of tracks. I think for especially the casual guy, go into it with this type of attitude. First of all, be fearless. Try to beat the favorite in any race you think the favorite's susceptible, and especially early. Remember, this is 6 races, 1 takeout. Take a stance, and no matter what the odds, just take a stance, and pass on horses early in this time of year, April and May, who coming in on long layoffs, the young horses. Remember, the stake season goes a lot deeper than it used to. It's a long year, so we don't really want horses at first or second starts. And tracks are closing, so sometimes horses like shipping in from Dover, they're shipping in because the track's closed, not because they necessarily want to be here. A guy like Ron Pierce at the Meadowlands might actually have an advantage there because he's actually driving at Dover, so he might know some of these horses. And remember this, the top 4 drivers at the Meadowlands win over 60% of the races, and that includes the Pick 6 races. So you got to concentrate on the big guns.
Great advice. Thanks so much, Bob.
Okay, and I'll talk to you shortly.
Thanks, Bob and Nikki. This past weekend, there was an exciting festival down in South Georgia. The Hawkinsville Harness Festival, which has been going on for 37 years now, took place to celebrate harness racing in this small town. The city manager, Jerry Merkerson, had an especially good day. He drives harness horses on the side and managed to get his first 2 wins ever, driving in qualifying races on Saturday.
Yeah, the training center, which is owned by the city and leased to Mac and Ann Lilly, is the winter home to more than 250 harness racing horses. The training center is also a vital part of the Hawkinsville economy as it brings in an estimated $8 million a year.
What I really like about the festival, Paul, is that the city sees it as their opportunity to thank the horsemen for all they do when they're down there and what they do to boost the economy in Hawkinsville. All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Here They Come. I'd like to thank Tony Alagna, Bob Hollywood Heyden, Nicole Kraft, and our producer, Rich Johnston. I'm Kate Lockhart.
And I'm Paul Ramlow.
And we'll see you next week for another episode of Here They Come.